Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill, and you're in for a real treat today because I have a special guest, Karen Tesoriero. She is a licensed clinical social worker in New York and a psychotherapist in her own private practice that she's been running for the past 12 years. But before that, she was a professional in the New York City Child's Welfare System for 15 years, as well as supervisory roles that she had in community mental health clinic. Through her work, Karen has seen all kinds of trauma throughout various stages. She has extensive training to help people with trauma. Today, we're talking about how trauma and people pleasing and attachment styles and all of our stuff, all of the work that we have to do relates to boundaries and how boundaries relate to self-care. And we got into a really great discussion. She has so many tips of the trade to share with you and ideas, practical things that you can listen to and take away. And if this type of thing floats your boat, which probably does because you're here listening, I want to make sure that you also know about an episode that I did that's similar but different, like same but different. With the previous guest, her name was Stacey Johnson. She is a coach, not a therapist, but she also talks about this idea of self-care and how we need to break free from things like overthinking and people pleasing. We need to regulate our nervous systems to be able to make confident decisions. There are so many things in our body that can go wrong based on things that are happening in our head. And Stacey has really compassionate guidance to be able to guide us through, build up some inner strength and look for opportunities for growth and transformation. So that episode is going to be a really good one for you to listen to as well. But in the meantime, stay right where you are and let's dive into it with Karen. Welcome, Karen, to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here as well.
Yeah, you are a wealth of knowledge. I can't wait to dive in. But before we do, can you give the listeners, I mean, they already know the bio of who you are, but can you give them a little bit of like who really is Karen?
Sure. So I am a psychotherapist. I have my own practice full time in New York City. I'm completely virtual and I'm a mom and I have been through it all. And I work with primarily people who have childhood trauma, a lot of women, and I work with women to redefine who they are. So a lot of people have different childhood trauma events or relationship, which is more common of what we say, but more harder to explain. It's like, why do I feel this way? Why did I form different attachment styles? Why is this playing out in my marriage? And so I work with women on defining those attachment styles, doing EMDR therapy to help them work past some of those childhood traumas in order to partly redefine who they are, but to move forward and to have the kind of relationships that they want to have. That's kind
I
of
love that. That work is so needed. I'm doing a lot of that type of work in therapy myself. So I so
Mhm.
appreciate people like you who are providing the opportunity for us, like, moms in our 30s and 40s who are finally, or, you know, just now realizing, like, oh, there's work to be done here. Right?
Yeah. So many women, I refer to it in my clients like the mental load. And I think anyone can relate to that, especially when you have kids. It's not just like, hey, what's for dinner tonight? It's, oh, so and so doesn't, my kids, so and so doesn't like wet food, so and so doesn't like this, who doesn't like carbs, and you're trying to piece all that together. And then what do I have in the pantry? What do I have to do we have to run to the, it's so heavy. And
Mhm.
women find themselves struggling with that because they want to be a good mom and they don't want to be judged. So oftentimes what we see, relating it back to trauma, we see women have these messages of being good enough or not being good enough. That's usually the negative message they have. I'm not good enough. People are judging me. I'm not lovable. And they carry those messages out. So part of what I do with my clients is, practicing self-care. No is a boundary, and
Mm.
no is a powerful word. And when we say no to certain things, no, I can't do that PTA project. No, we can't do that today. Or no, someone else has to take that on. it really allows us an opportunity to practice boundaries. Because oftentimes when we're kids and we experience those childhood traumas, it's because our boundaries have been violated in some way. And those could be extreme cases, sexual abuse, physical abuse, but it could also be in other ways um, that are a little bit more passive, let's say. And it really creates this feeling of what I say doesn't matter or what I need doesn't matter. And so we want to help people or women reclaim that power to say no and to protect themselves and to do what they need to do, to find that time to do things that they enjoy so that they could come back to the family unit, come back to their kids and be a better mom, be a more relaxed mom, not be zoning out on the phones, not be playing games or scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, but to really reconnect our kids in those moments to be there for them, to be the mom that they need.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. There are so many thoughts that I'm like, oh yes, must follow up. Yes, yes, yes. It's truly incredible how it's all connected with the boundaries and the self-care and the attachment. Like as as I'm hearing you talk and sort of put everything into one neat little package for the listeners, what I'm sort of realizing is that my attachment style that I have with my kids, it informs the boundaries or lack thereof that I have with the kids. Because for me, I'm pretty good with boundaries on time. I'm a time management strategist. This is what I do. So with my own time, I am quite firm and structured with
Mhm.
what I will take on and what I will not. But with my kids, I say yes. I say yes all
Yeah.
the time because I feel like I want to be the best mom. I want them to love me. I want like all of this stuff is intertwined.
Yeah. But you know when people really bond with their kids, and it sounds crazy, people think like, oh, we got to take these big elaborate trips, all this stuff. And I will tell you, as a divorced mom myself, the most important bonding time I've had with my, especially my younger son in particular, going back and forth to the grocery store. It sounds crazy when I tell people this, but like we had a routine. He's off in college now. So, but when he was home, we had a routine one night a week. We'd get in the car, we would go. And during that time, he would tell me about his friends. He would tell me about school. He would tell me about something he heard on the radio. It was those little moments. And then we'd go into the store, we'd do what we had to do, we'd get back in the car, and he would pick up the conversation as if we never took that hour in the grocery store. And one point, somebody asked him, my partner now turned around and said, "Oh, do you want me to go grocery shopping with your mom this week?" And he was like, "No, there's no other place I'd rather be." And my boyfriend was so taken aback by like this teenage boy wanted to go grocery shopping with his mom. But that was our time together. That's our bonding. So it's little things like that. It doesn't have to be big elaborate things for our kids. And kids these days, that's another whole topic. Kids these days are so stressed out and in so many activities. They don't need to be in all that. They need one activity that they're enjoying more than anything, that they want to be at, that they're socializing at, and that could be anything. But we overpack our kids, and then as moms, we take all that on, running them around from practice to study groups to tutors to whatever it is. And it's okay to say no to some of that, or even better, to put ourselves in that schedule, just like we schedule our kids' practices and tutors and doctor's appointments and everything else. Having a set schedule for ourselves and being like, this is my time to do my book club, to go gardening, to go volunteer, to go to the gym, whatever it is, and to take that time and block it out just like we would for anybody else in our family.
Yeah, I love that. What I often recommend to people when they're trying to find the time to do that, like I think by now, anyone who's paying attention knows that self-care is important and
Yeah.
helps us show up better in the way that we want to in the rest of our life, right? So we get it. And that almost creates this level of stress, like another level, another layer, because we're like, yes, but when, if I take time for me, I have to take it away from the kids and away from my partner and away from my work. And it creates, at least with the women that I work with, they have this level of like, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. And I'm guilty because I'm even trying. Um, and so how
What
does
I
like,
recommend
sorry?
what I recommend for that
Yeah.
is if you're married, right? Because this is different than single moms who don't have a partner in the house to kind of help with stuff. But if you're married, what I recommend to my clients is you spend a minimum of 10 minutes once a week with your partner. Kids are in bed, kids are out, you spend 10 minutes, and that's the time to connect with your partner. That's where you want to look at, how is our relationship doing? Are we doing okay this week? Like, what's working for us, what's not? And I have a whole list of topics that people could use that time for. But it's usually a 10-minute, because sometimes we got to get the buy-in from the men on this. That's why I limit it to 10 minutes, but it could expand out if needed. But that's the time to sit with the agenda and say, okay, this is our week for as our family. This is what our kids need to do. This is when grocery shopping has to be done. What are you going to take on? Because I have this time set aside for myself, and I'm not going to monkey with that. So just like little Johnny has a doctor's appointment, this is my time for self-care and whatever that is. So if that's time where normally mom goes grocery shopping, dad could take that role on. He could do that. He could carry that mental load from start to finish of putting together what the family needs, going through the pantry, going through the freezer, putting it all together, getting the coupons clipped on the card and everything, and go and do that so mom can enjoy her time for self-care. It's partially about navigating out and putting things out. And even if the kids are a little bit young, they could still do some of this stuff. They
Mhm.
could set the table, they could clear the table, 4 and 5-year-olds, they could put the salt and pepper and the napkins on the table. Like, they could do these different things, and we have to start trusting our kids and our partners. It may not be exactly the way we want it done or the way that we would do it, but it's still going to get done.
That's the biggest thing I think is once you get past that barrier of feeling like you can't ask for help because you're supposed to do it all. If we
Mhm.
can even get past that one, then we're micromanaging and we're like, no, 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 I'll just do it because it's
Yep.
faster, easier, better my way. Like I'm certainly guilty of that. It took me a long time. Um, and then I would also feel a lot of guilt when I took time away for myself because I would worry about the caregiver in charge. I wasn't worried
Mhm.
about the kids. I knew they'd be fine.
Yep.
Maybe it's different. I have one son who's autistic. So I always sort of was like, okay, is the caregiver going to be okay? Do they have what they need? Are they feeling like they need a break? And I couldn't enjoy my time.
Mhm.
Makes sense too.
That absolutely makes sense. That absolutely makes, especially when you have a special needs child, because it's like, oh, who else is going to understand them the way that I do?
Right.
Absolutely. And all these different things add different layers to it. You know
I
what I mean?
love,
I don't know where you're located in New York. We have like hab workers, different
mhm.
things. My kids have special needs as well. So I kind of get that. They both have IEPs. But yeah, there are different, like I am famous for turning around and being like, oh, because I'm divorced. So, oh, you're going to your dad's? That's my self-care time. Oh, grandma wants you to go to McDonald's. Here you go. So any chance you get. But the other thing for single moms, right? Because single moms don't have necessarily all the time that to rely on. I recommend single moms try and find other single moms. So if it's
Mm.
not out there already, create a Facebook group in your community for single moms and get to know people that way. Create that community. It doesn't cost a lot, and a lot of people are on their phones anyway. So create the group, see who joins, see who you can network with there, and maybe trade off babysitting so that one Saturday, one mom takes the kids for an hour, and the next Saturday is give each other breaks that way.
I love that. I love how we're utilizing this idea of networking
Mhm.
in our personal lives because we talk about networking a lot in a business sense. But why not bridge the realms and bring it over to our personal world, right? And finding like-minded people and people who are in similar situations to us. That's brilliant. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things when we talk about self-care, there's a lot of things that we could do that don't cost a lot. Like
Totally.
that don't, so many people like, oh, I can't go to a spa, I can't afford that. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be those big things. It could be something as simple as just taking yourself out to lunch and enjoying being with your own company and just sitting there and being okay with that. It could be something as simple as reconnecting with an old friend. We have so many people on Facebook. Most of them we know from childhood, high school, whatever. Send them a message. Hey, we used to be close in high school. We kind of lost touch with each other. Why don't we spend 15 minutes on the phone together and reconnect with each other? Talking to old friends is a great way to promote self-care and to really kind of take care of ourselves. Going back to the word no and that as a boundary, that could be even with our bosses sometimes. I see people take on so much at work. We're always constantly asked to take on things at work. Simple way to do that at work, and I tell people this all the time, go over all the things your boss just assigned you and then say, hey, wait a second. You want me to do A, B, and C? I think the priority should be C, A, and then B. Do you agree with that? Is C now the priority? This way they know you're not going to get to those other two things right away until that C is done, and that's where you're going to concentrate.
Mm,
There's
yes.
there's a lot of different ways to say no in a nice way.
Right. I sometimes will say, and it has gotten me in a little bit of hot water because I'm a bit sassy when I say it, but I'll say like, um, you know, something along the lines of which of these is the top priority? Like very
Mhm.
similar to what you're saying, but like, do you like to make the person who's asking a million things of you realize that they're being a little bit unreasonable and like,
Exactly.
okay, I can only fit three things into this day. What would you like me to drop?
Absolutely. And we can even say that to our spouses
Yeah.
and PTA and everything else we have going on. What's my priority today? Because that's what I'm going to get to. And everything else is just going to have to wait, and that's going to be okay.
And sometimes the self-care should be the priority. Like
Yes,
we're allowed to make it the priority once in a while.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I work with a lot of women on redefining where they are. Like so many women are at home and they're like, I'm losing myself in my kids. I'm losing myself in my spouse. I'm losing myself. What do I do to redefine myself? And that's a matter of creating hobbies for ourselves, maybe volunteering, maybe you want to work out or join a gym or whatever it is. And it's about keeping that time sacred and setting the boundaries around that.
I want to pick your brain while I have you about something that I see often in my own life and in my close friends.
Mhm.
Um, we're giving and giving and giving and giving to so many things that are important to us throughout the day. Whether it is intentional and self-directed or sort of reactive matters not. At the end of the day, we have nothing left in the tank. And that's often the time, like when the kids go to bed, is when the partner's like, "Oh, great, you're available. I finally can see you," and you're just like, "I gotta, I
Touchdown.
gotta go to bed now."
Yeah.
Do you have any strategies for those of us who are in that type of situation who would really like to use that time towards fostering our relationship or doing our self-care or like, but we're just so damn tired that we sleep instead,
hmm
you know?
Sleep can be a form of self-care, or it might be something else. So we want to be careful with the sleep part of it, okay?
Mm.
Sleep easily, like one of my stereotypical depressed signs is when people are sleeping a lot. So we want to monitor for that because, and that's what I mean about this mental load. It is so heavy and we are so physically exhausted that we just want to go to bed and we just want to sleep it off. Sometimes we need to nurture that relationship. So that's when that 10-15 minutes, even if it's just connecting, sitting on the couch, and I tell people this, and this is a hard one, everybody putting everything electronic away. So the TV is off, the radio is off, the phones are away, the iPads are away, the laptops are away. And we're just sitting with our partner and connecting, even if it's just for 10 minutes, even if you're just sitting there touching each other, holding hands and looking at each other in the eye and making that connection.
Mm. Yeah.
That is so important to keeping that. And I tell people this all the time. People don't always realize that they have to invest time in their marital relationship because without that connection to each other, the family unit is going to implode on each other. It's going to explode. And our divorce rate in this country is so high. It's over 50% divorce rate. We need to keep that connection going, or else, it's a very real possibility where it might lead to a divorce. It's not warranted, but it happens. So we want to try and nurture that marital relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like how you're sort of bringing it back and saying we can use this 10-minute chunk because that feels doable, even if I'm exhausted, right? Like that is a reasonable amount of time to be able to say like, okay, we're going to sit here, we're going to be present,
Yeah,
right?
present with
And
each other. Exactly.
if the expectation is that it's only 10 minutes and then I get to sleep, great. But likely what will happen is that it will continue past those 10 minutes and then you'll get into a conversation or get into a game or get into something that will sort of continue to foster that connection.
The other thing that I like to recommend to people, again, I'm always trying to be mindful of people's finances. just creating a nice date night atmosphere at home. So the kids are in bed already, and you're making a nice dinner that you both enjoy, and you're lighting candles, and you're putting everything away, and maybe a little bit of music on. Like, that's a great time to connect too. And it doesn't cost a lot, and it's not going out to a restaurant or anything like that. It's just connecting. What's going on with you, and not about the kids. Everybody talks about the kids. We love our kids. We all know we love our kids. But if that's the only thing that we have in common with our husbands, when the kids grow up, and that's why we're seeing a huge increase in gray marriages, people
Mm,
are losing that connection for each other. So that's another reason why self-care is also important for women, because we want you to go out. We want you to go to a book club. We want you to go do those things individually. We want him to go to his golf game or fishing or whatever it is he likes to do. This way, when you do have that nice dinner together once a week, once every other week, you have things to talk about. It's not always just about the kids. It's about, oh my goodness, I went to the gym and there was a guy on the treadmill running with like Timberland boots on. Like, who could run in Timberland boots? Oh, well, wait till you hear this. The guy hit the ball and he went into the lake at the golf range and blah, blah, blah. You want those connections because you're rediscovering each other, just like when you were dating. What was fun about your day? What was hard about your day? Those conversations are where the emotional connection is going to come in, and that's going to keep the relationship stronger.
yeah, especially in these post-COVID times where a lot of people still haven't quite gotten quite back into the idea of like going out of the home. They may be working at the home.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine? So many of us are, this is me today. My partner's downstairs. I'm here. We're both working, but we're not
Yep.
we're not together, but we both haven't left the house. So when we
Yeah.
go out for Valentine's Day dinner tonight, we're gonna be like, so how was your Zoom meeting, right? Like there wasn't anything else. So yeah, really important to have interests and hobbies and activities separately
Yeah.
from one another.
Yeah.
Um, even, even if you're not in a relationship, having interests and hobbies and activities is important just for your own growth.
And trying different things together with your partner.
Mm,
Like, if neither one of you are big cooks, it's Valentine's Day. Go book a cooking class. It doesn't have to be on Valentine's Day. It could
of
be in
course.
May. You know what I mean? But the cooking class, and go do a cooking class together. Go to get a photography class together on Groupon. They have all those different free things. Try something different that you could do together. And what I tell my partner, he's a perfectionist. He has OCD and everything else. And I'm like, the life is beautiful in the imperfection. Like, if we're going on a camping trip and it's raining, we're going to remember that camping trip when we got the tent was leaking and it was pouring rain. And what are we going to do? Let's go sleep in the car. We're going to remember that over the perfect 70-degree camping day that blends in because we've done 10 of them already. So you want to try something different that might be fun or it might not be, but then you're going to laugh about it.
Yeah, and I think laughter is one of those missing pieces. We find ourselves so serious and so busy and so stressed all the time that laughter is a piece that, at least for me, I'm trying really to bring in that play this year. That's one of my intentions for the years is bringing in more play, more lightness.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I highly, like, when I'm working with women, I encourage them so much to go out and do different things. Some of my clients right now, I have one client who's struggling in her relationship, and she was like a jogger. She would go out and jog a 5K here, 5K there. Well, through our work together, she ran a half marathon here in New York City. And then
Wow.
last year in November, she ran the full marathon. And she was like, I couldn't have done that without our work together. I wouldn't have believed in myself to do that. And I have other women creating businesses for themselves. Like, it's just empowering to think about how we can do these things. It seems like we can't, and it's hard. And I'm not saying it's easy. It is hard, but we can still do them. We just got to
Mhm.
find different ways. And like, here's the problem. How do I want to overcome this?
Yes, and because it is hard, it's so important to have support through someone like you, right? And
Yeah.
I'm imagining the audience members here listening and just like nodding their heads as you're talking, saying, "Yes, yes, I know, I remember. Yes, that's a good point." What's the next step for them if they're loving what they hear and they're like, "Oh, I need more Karen in my life. Like, how do I hook up with this lady?"
I have my website, which is KD LCSW.net. So they could always connect with me there. I'm also on Instagram at KD LCSW. So that's my Instagram handle. So they could connect with me there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll make sure both of those are in the show notes. So it's super
Thank you.
easy if you're listening, like just scrolling, click.
Mhm.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know that you heard about Karen here and feel free to reach out in the DMs. We love that because podcasts are a wonderful way for us to talk to you,
Yeah,
but we want you to talk back. We want to hear back.
absolutely.
Yes, I would say
Yeah.
that. So, Karen, before we wrap the show, is there anything that is on your heart to share that we haven't touched on today, or any piece of advice that you just want to make sure all the listeners hear today?
The biggest thing is to reach out if you feel like you're struggling in some way. Reach out, if not to me, to another therapist. So many people don't know how to access therapists. If you Google search therapist in your neighborhood, if you have health insurance, contact your health insurance company and ask them for a list of providers. Like, there are so many different ways to reach out, but I feel like not enough women reach out because it's one of those self-care things that might feel indulgent, or what if people find out, or what would I talk about? That's part of the therapist's job, to help guide you into, hey, what's going on? Why are you here today? Tell me about your life, and let's figure out what you want to work on and what your goals are. So please, please, new moms, moms with school age kids, teenage moms, kids going off to college. That's another whole realm of stress.
Yeah.
The college process, kids who are grown and flown, and moms who are like, I don't know what to do with myself anymore. Whatever phase of parenting you're in, you can always reach out to somebody.
I totally agree. And it is becoming so normal and mainstream now. Like, there is not a time I haven't been in therapy since I was like 14 years old. And it is the best form of self-care that I do. And
Absolutely. And it's
um,
once a week for an hour, and you could do it.
oh,
Now, so many therapists are virtual. I cannot tell you, I see 30 clients in a week. At least 10 of them are people sitting in their cars.
right. Yes.
Oh, oh, where did I
Yeah.
go?
At
Where?
least. I mean, I do so many things in the car as well. And I totally, wherever you can squeeze it in, however you can get it, that is, it is a gift to yourself to be able to do that. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And encourage your male counterparts, your husbands, boyfriends, partners, because so many men don't reach out. Yep, there's a
yeah,
stigma still for men.
there is. And I feel like that's a whole other conversation. Maybe we'll have you back and chat about that because, oh my God, they need it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for your time and your
Oh,
wisdom
thank
and
you for having me, Jill.
experience. There's just so many good like nuggets and pieces of wisdom in this episode that I'm sure people are going to want to re-listen to it again. And that's the wonderful thing about a podcast that's like just lives evergreen, is that you get what you need from it. So you're here, you're listening to this episode today, you hear one or two things, and then those are the one or two things you need today. But if you come back and revisit the episode in 3 months or 6 months, you'll be in a different place. You can't ever stand in the same river twice, as they say, right? So you're different. The information that you will receive from the same episode will be different. So I encourage people to come back and give it a re-listen, like bookmark it, make yourself a note in your calendar for 3 months, like come back to Karen's episode and re-listen because you will get more. There's just so much packed in here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.